in this video, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of living in Portugal and why, I don't know, why we thought that this could be a thing here. It really can be.
Yeah. So why Portugal?
Yeah.
Number one reason is safety. And we felt it. When we were in
Very
Portugal, we felt so safe. We were taking the train. We were walking around late at night. We were just moving about the city as if we lived there. And that was our whole goal when we went there. Like, how are we going to feel looking like us with our family, just interacting with the locals? And we felt completely safe. And we felt really at home.
Yeah. So kind of how it happened, why we went to Portugal, because you're probably thinking like, why on earth would you guys go to Portugal? Like you guys went to Thailand, you guys went to the Caribbean, we're Portugal. So back during, was it COVID?
It was before COVID.
It was before, yeah, because we started watching Our Race Journey with Ahmad and Christina, and they really got us like really thinking way outside of our zip code when they say, you know, they moved abroad and they were doing different jobs and stuff. But then they landed in Portugal and we were like, wow, Portugal.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. And then we started looking into it and started noticing like, wow, number one, it's a very safe country. Number two, it's actually a pretty nice country as well too. So when we went there, we were like, okay, this is all right. This is not bad. This is not bad at all. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I will say, before you make a jump, before you decide on just saying, because I've seen some people like on TikTok and YouTube, and they're like, I just packed up everything. I've never been to this place. I'm just going to go. And that sounds like a fun idea, but when you have, when it's just you maybe, but when you have kids and it's a family, you really have to think about, is this place right for our whole family? And the only way you're going to do that is if you actually go to visit these places. So that's what we had to do.
Yeah.
Because we saw it through Ahmad and Christine and we were like, oh my God, let's go. And then we were like, wait a minute, we really need to go visit because what if we get there and we absolutely hate it?
Yep.
That's a lot to try to turn back around and rebuild everything, redo everything. And, or, you know, if you're renting your house out, kick people out and, you know, it's a lot to figure out.
Yeah, so definitely a lot to figure out. So right now, what we're going to do, and I have stuff on my phone because I don't want to miss the notes here. I want to make sure we go over the pros and cons and explain to you guys, like, you know, what we've seen, what our research have shown, and, you know, just some things that you may want to look out for if you're considering that. And also let you guys know, like, you know, what are our thoughts on it afterward? So the first thing we're going to do is, of course, why Portugal? And we already talked about the safety, but it's the vibe. It's the vibe of Portugal. And it's just something about it. When you get there, you're going to start noticing, like, especially if you're coming from the States, you're going to start noticing, like, oh, we can just, like, walk a little bit slower right now. You know? Yeah, it can walk a little bit slower. Like, you know, the things are going to start this time. But we're going to get there.
Yeah,
you know,
we're going to get there
when
we get there. Yeah. And I know that's an adjustment because it was an adjustment for us when we moved from New York to Valdosta from the South. So you're going to have to get used to that. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to just be, oh, okay, this is the way they live and this is the way I'm going to do it. No. Yeah. Because, again, we moved from New York to Georgia. We were like, what is wrong with these people? They're so slow. So you just have to get used to it. But let's talk about housing because that's people's number one concern is like, how much is it going to cost for me to actually live in an apartment? Now, we are going to talk about 3-bedroom apartments because for us, we feel like that's enough space for us with having 2 boys and maybe a dog going with us.
Maybe.
And Jason needs space for his home office. So 3 bedrooms should be a good fit. When you go over there, you have to realize that you're not going to have all the amenities and all the things that you have in the States in these big houses. Unless you move further out, maybe you get a house. But we're going to talk about apartment life. So we're going to start out with Lisbon because that's where most people, when they think about Portugal, they think about living in Lisbon. Now we're talking about either living on the outskirts, it's going to be our lower cost, or living inside of Lisbon, like the city center. So what's the cost you give
All right.
us?
So what we're going to do is go for go from the low end to the high end. The low end of living in Lisbon is $3,450, and this is all utilities included, and also if you're like going out to eat maybe 2 or 3 times a week. We're gonna say 2 or 3 times a week because we like to cook. Now, if you like to go out a lot, it's gonna be higher. Just letting you know. But that's anywhere from $3,450 per month up until about $4,750 per month in Lisbon. And that's in the city center of Lisbon.
And that, like, again, that's your activities and your utilities and, you know, just some entertainment and things like that. So for us, Lisbon, I would say, reminds me of New York City, like Manhattan. It was like the hustle, the bustle, you know, moving about, a lot of people, crowded. We stayed inside of the city center, like we were right there in the middle. And for us, I felt like that was a little bit too much, you know, for a family getting up every day and trying to think about going to school, trying to think about if we're doing any other activities, getting through those crowds and trying to navigate that. It could be a lot. Yeah. And also when you have those tourists coming to visit, you're kind of in the middle of that. So for us, we didn't like it. And Carter really didn't like it. He was like, I don't like, when we were in Lisbon, he was turned off. He was like, I don't like Portugal. I'm going to go home, you know? Yeah. But as we ventured out, you'll see he loved it.
Yeah. And also I would say that, again, the Airbnb that we did have was like right outside of like one of the train stops. I forgot what area it was. But anyway, there was something going on every night.
No, not Chado.
I cannot remember. That's a shame that I can't. Chiado.
Chiado, yes.
So yeah, we were in Chiado, and again, it was at the train stop, but it was at a square where they had local music every night. And there was a lot of people there because it was during like the holidays. So that's something to take in consideration too. But yes, to get out of there, let's say if you're working in another part of town where you can't walk and you have to drive, it's going to probably take a while just to get out of there to get to the other side. So
and also with Ubers, they were coming in. It was, you know, they had to go up this street, to go up that street in traffic, and it was just very congested. Yeah. So for us, that wouldn't be it. But Lisbon, you have to take into account there are going to be a lot of things to do there. Like you're going to have the aquariums, you're going to have the zoos and things like that. So, you know, it has to be a deal breaker, or just go a little bit outside of the city. Agree. Now we're going to talk about Porto. Porto. If you watched our other video, you know that Porto was it for us. Yeah. Once we got to Porto, we were like, this is the vibe. This is where we're feeling. Porto, if you're familiar with New York, so Lisbon is going to be Manhattan. Porto is going to be more like Long Island. You're laid back. Suburbs kind of feel, not suburbs, but that just laid back kind of slower lifestyle. There wasn't as much graffiti on the walls, so that made us feel more comfortable, especially Carter. He was like, oh, this is nice. I can vibe with this. The people were a little bit nicer, I felt. In Porto, they were more smiles. You know, it was just more laid back, so it wasn't as rushed, I felt like.
And that's so true. Yeah, that vibe was definitely there. And again, just based off of us getting lost. And like not lost to the point of like, oh my God, we don't know where we're at, but just lost and just exploring. Like we just picked days. We had like 2 days like that. We were just like, we're just going to get lost and start walking. We put our GPS on to figure out where we were going and just walked. And we were like, wow, the vibe here, the feel has that feel like Carter just made sure he said it. He was like, I could do this vibe.
Yeah, I could do this vibe because it was laid back, and there was stuff to do. That you had like the cool McDonald's there. You had towers. You had I think there were some castles that we wanted to go see, but there was stuff to do around where you wouldn't feel like you're getting bored. And if you are bored and you feel like, oh, I'm missing the action in the city or there's something going on, you can always hop on that. I think it was like a 2-hour train ride, 2.5 hours. Hop on that train, go over there, spend the weekend there, and then come back
and boat back because that train is very fast.
So what is our prices looking like?
All right, so Porto, when we did our research, again, apartment, 3-bedroom apartment, anywhere from $2,800 with utilities, $2,800 to $3,800 per month.
Yes, and again, utilities mean eating out, also eating out, and you know, doing some activities and things like that is all included in our price. So your price might be a lot cheaper than ours, or it might be a little bit more expensive than ours. Just depending on where you want to be, and if you actually want to be in the city of Porto, like in the middle downtown area kind of thing, or if you want to venture out. I will say that Porto is going to have also I forgot my train of thought. Porto just has fun. Just has fun written all over it. It's fun. Boats. Just go visit Porto.
Yeah, Porto was cool. I like it.
Yes, Braga.
Braga. Now, Braga is a place that we researched and we really wanted to go to, especially when we were in Porto, but time constraints didn't allow that. But the videos that we did watch in Braga was really nice. And it had more of like a type of feel, like a community feel, because it's a little bit smaller, but it was still beautiful. Now, that's the one thing I would say about Portugal in general, despite the graffiti and stuff in Lisbon, because again, they consider that as art and it's welcome. The building, the architecture, just everything about it just has that beauty to it. It's been there for a while. So you have those ancient buildings and stuff like that. It was just beautiful. So Braga, same thing with the videos that we watch. Now Braga, something you were saying about Braga.
Braga, you're going to just have to remember, Braga is not going to it's going to still have expats there, but it's not overpopulated at like Lisbon and Porto, like when there's going to be a lot of them. So if you look like a family like we look, you might feel like a little bit out of place, you know, or feel like you're not as many people are represented there as you are. So you have to keep that in mind. Like, do I want to be around more expats and more people that look like me, or do I just want to live where it's a more affordable and I don't mind that? So if you don't mind that, and you're going to also be limited like on the schools that you do have to choose from in Braga. So the prices for Braga are going to be,
and now this is the most affordable. You're anywhere from $2,050 to $2,950 per month. And again, that's utilities.
a 3-bedroom.
For a 3-bedroom. So that's really not bad if you're coming from the States, depending on where you're coming from, because like $2,050 is like a studio apartment in New York.
Yeah. So maybe not even a studio, maybe a closet.
A closet.
So yeah, it just depends. Do I feel comfortable enough in my skin where I don't mind being the only one or a couple of people that look like me, or I want more expats around and I want more people who look like me? So that just depends on you. Now our next two places are going to be like those beach town places that going to give you that beach vibe, going to give you that cool way of living and almost make you feel like the rich and the rich kind of. I don't know. That's the vibe I got from you. So we're going to say Cascais. Now, again, we mess up and say this. Hopefully I said it right because we've been practicing. I think I just said it right. Yeah. But Cascais is kind of like that beach town itself. You have, some activities out there. So like looking at the price, though, it is a little bit more expensive. Actually, this is by far the most expensive out of all the 5 areas that we are talking about. So that's $3,650 up into $4,950 per month. So again, you're getting that beach. So again, with that beach brings the price tag because again, that's in much demand. If anybody's coming from all different countries, they want to live near the water, you're going to pay to live by the water. That's with anywhere that you go. Yeah. And in these 2 places, you're going to have to worry about, are you going to get annoyed with people a lot? Like coming in for the beach season, the prices are going to go up on you when it's more touristy time. Yeah. So food restaurants might get more expensive and things like that. So is that a deal breaker for you, or do you just love living by the water? So up to you. Yeah. The Algarve, again, is going to be that same thing. Give you that beach vibe. Algarve is good for like surfing and things like that. So if you're good with that. Now, we fell in love with Algarve because that's where Matt and Christina settled on. Yeah. They lived in Lisbon for a minute and then they were in the Algarve. But for us, we were like, it's a little bit just too far out there. And, we love the beach and we love the water, but that's not all we want to do. We want to be around people. We want it to kind of be popping a little bit and not so far out, from all the activities. So
with the activities and stuff like that in the Algarve, and of course it being far out, on the low end, if you're not in the city center, you're roughly about $2,500 a month, utilities included, 3-bedroom, up to about $3,500 per month. So again, you have some price there because you're near the water, but it's still not as expensive as Cascais or living in Lisbon. So
and it's just the pros and cons of what you were actually looking for. Again, you need to go visit before you make a decision. All right, let's talk about education. For us, education is important because we have 2 boys. Yep. We have one boy who would love to be homeschooled. And they're like, well, Brizette, you're a teacher. Just homeschool them. Just do that. It's just not that easy. One kid will be like, yes, let's do it. That's Carter. He's like, I love to be up under you, Mom. Teach me. And then I could be done with this. Let's do it. Chase is our social butterfly where he's like, I need to be in the mix of people. I need to be in schools. I need to, be doing this. And it's funny because Chase has been looking at the international schools and what he's seen, he's loved. So if you're in the States, the tuition for private school is very expensive. So when you go abroad, if your kids don't speak the language, you're going to have to probably opt to put them in private school if you're older. They might get away with it if they're younger to go to the public school. Now, when we did speak with our photographer about this, she did say that the public schools do have people there to help them with the English, but it's not their number one concern or, that your child that they cater to your child, So you have to say, is this going to be a struggle for my child if I put them in the public school? Or do I need to put them in an international school or a private school where they speak English so that they can still get a good education? So that's on you. And that's a question you have to ask yourself because you are not in the classroom with your child every day. I will say that as a teacher, you are not in the classroom with your child every day. So you might say, they'll be fine. They'll learn the language. Someone's going to be helping them. But I will say, from teaching kids who come here with another language, especially Spanish, that's where we get most of our kids speaking Spanish. It's such a struggle because the world is going on around them and they don't know what's going on, and it's a frustrating thing. And they will find a friend or two who speaks the English language or speaks Spanish to them. And it's good, but you have to put yourself in that position. Could you as an adult, be able to sit in a room all these hours a day and be able to deal with that? So,
wow, that's good. Good talk.
Yeah. So, something to consider. But tuition, you're going this is for one child, from $7,000 on the low end to what?
$22,000 per year.
On the high end.
On the high end. That's kind
so
of high.
It's high. It's not as high as in the States. But if you're coming from a family who's not paying tuition right now, and you're then having to say, well, now I have to pay tuition, that could be a deal breaker for you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of online schools, but you just have to know your child. And what you can also do is put your child in extra activities on the outside. So if you do homeschool them, make sure they get into like dance or soccer or something that's going to give them that social piece that they're going to be missing, because they're coming from socializing with people every day to now not having friends.
Yeah.
So.
And also in researching these schools, we noticed like the top schools were in Lisbon, Porto, and Braga, right?
Well, no, not Braga, but Lisbon and Porto had those top schools.
They had
like you're going to have the IB schools. You're going to have all these different schools. You're going to have a choice between a lot of schools. Braga, you're going to be very limited. The Algarve, you're going to be limited because they're just a little bit further out. But you do have those schools there. So just be mindful of that.
Gotcha.
Let's talk about
pros.
The activities for pros for our kids.
We love the pros. Love the pros. Yes.
The biggest pro, I want to say, and you always say this, once we get there, you have so many more opportunities to go visit other places.
That is correct.
So that's a big pro. You're in Europe, so now it's just a plane ride away.
Or train.
Just a train, whatever it is. And it's not as expensive, which is so nice. So that's a pro.
That's the beauty.
They also have, if you're in Lisbon, the bigger areas, you're going to have museums, you're going to have zoos, you're going to have bouncy houses, all these things and parks that are going to keep your kids entertained. I know, Jason, we were there for almost like a week and a half. And I was like, oh, well, we get bored. But you had to remind me that you're not doing something every single day. You're living life.
Yeah, you're going to be life. So again, when we were there roughly about a week and a half, just about. And let's just say you're there for 2 weeks. And for 14 days, you're trying to figure out, okay, I need to do something for at least 12 of these 14 days. So you're doing things back to back to back to back to back. But if you're living there, you got life going on. You got groceries you have to make. You have like school activities, kids at school. They got tests. They got soccer activities. They got this, they got that. We got parent teacher night. We have all these things going on. So you're not going to be doing something every single night. And there are going to be days where you're like, on Wednesday, we're going to the park. We're going to hang out at the park. But Thursday and Friday, they got homework. Or Friday, we'll hit the movies. So when we were looking at it, that's what we were trying to take in. We were trying to take in, if we're in this one area, what can we do in this one area just to live life? And again, where's the grocery store? Okay, what do they have at the grocery store? This is good. So then you can have a weekend trip to like the Algarve, or a weekend trip to Spain, or you're on holiday. Let's go to Spain for this week. The kids are out of school for a week. Let's do that. So that's something to consider, instead of you kind of think about those 14 things that you're trying to do on a vacation. Those 14 things now become 14 things over the course of like 4 months or 5 months. So that's something to consider. So it's always bad. I'm glad you said that in the opening, when you see sometimes on TikTok and these fast videos of thinking, I'm going to move here, I'm just going to go for it. Really, you should go and just stop and just kind of like live with the people and just observe what you observe. Are they going fast? Or they look stressed when they're trying to do things like that. So that's why we love the activities, because with the museums and such, even though we ran through the museum, we could go back.
Yeah.
Especially like the zoo.
And I will say another thing, take in consideration that when you go to other countries, they're not kids are being kids and playing outside. They're not involved in so many activities that we're involved in the States. So you might think, well, my kid is in this, and that. Their way of life is let a kid be a kid and let them go outside and play, let them explore, let them enjoy life, and slow down. So when you go somewhere like that, you have to get in the mindset, I'm here to slow down too, So my hustle and bustle that I had is not going to be the same here. And that's the reason that I'm here. Yeah. So take that in consideration. The parks, just being outside. Being outside and exploring the different streets, you'll get lost in the streets. You'll get lost in just the beauty of it. And that's what's nice. And going to the castles and things like that. So that's going to be a pro. Beach life is a pro. You get beach life, you're close to the water, depending where you're coming from. So that's a cool thing. Healthcare. Healthcare is another pro. Healthcare there is top tier, especially in your bigger places like Lisbon and Porto. You're going to have great top tier healthcare. Now you do have the public system, which is going to range between $5 to $10 a month, but you're going to have private as well, where it might open you up to a little bit more. And if you are there as an expat, you're probably going to have to get private insurance instead of the public because you don't live there as a local. And you shouldn't take away from their stuff. So that's going to be anywhere from $100 to $200 a month. So, and then you have your expat communities.
In Lisbon and Cascais, you have a really strong Cascais
and Porto.
You have a strong Black expat community, or you just have a strong expat community in general. When we were there, we did find a few TikToks of expat communities.
Facebook.
I'm sorry, Facebook. But on Instagram, we did find an expat community that had like these dances. So I remember when I showed you, I couldn't figure out where it was, but it was in Lisbon, and they had like party nights. And again, it was like not party like what you think, like people are getting like trashed and stuff like that. No, it was like really cool vibes, like kind of like Afrocentric vibes and stuff like that. So that was really cool to kind of mention out. Like if the kids are older and now they're doing their own thing, that's something like husband and wife could do, or if you're a little bit younger, you could do that too.
And I will say, before you even go, now while this is in your mind, like I really want to move to whatever location, join that expat community, because you'll constantly see what they're doing, and you'll constantly see, is it a big presence of, if it's African American or whatever you are, or if you just say, is there a large presence of expats over there? I know you're not going over there to just be with the expat community, but I think when you first get over there, it is nice to have people who speak the language and who are familiar to things that you're going through, the challenges you might be going through, as well as getting involved in the community and meeting local people.
Correct.
So it gives you that good mix, and also for your kids, it gives them that good mix. So that's a good thing.
So now moving to the cons. Yes, the cons.
Oh, cons.
I'll start.
The number one thing. Well, I'll start. The number one thing is that you're going to be far away from family, So I want to say that's the biggest thing, is you're going to be away from family, and you're going to miss those birthdays and weddings and things like that you can't just normally jump into and go visit them now. But then I also kind of say is, how often do you visit your family when you're in the States?
Unless you guys live right near
Unless you
each
live
other.
close, like our family is all over. So, how often are you doing those activities with them? All right, what's your next
The
one?
other thing that you have to consider is the Portuguese language. That is part of daily life. And we've experienced this, and hopefully we'll link one of the videos like somewhere on this screen of our trip to Portugal, because we got a ton of videos when we went over a ton, including from Porto, from Lisbon, and just all the things that we did as far as the castles and such as well too. This is a plug that definitely watch these videos. But we experienced this when we were trying to wash and dry clothes in Lisbon, because the wash and dryer combo in our Airbnb or our apartment wasn't exactly the best. Porto was much better, but Lisbon was not the best. So we did experience that. Everything was in Portuguese. Thank God for technology on your phone. You could just pull up Google Translate, put it on the video mode or camera mode, and just hold it up to something and translate it, because we had no idea how to start the washer and dryer. We had no idea how to get the card, because it was a card that you had to use to do that. It was a mess. Brissette put
and no
money
one was
in
willing. No one was there to say, "I got you. I hope you know." There
was no attendance.
There was no attendance.
It was kind of like
so
just running
like,
24 hours. So we were like, oh.
So it was a struggle. I paid for other people's washer and dryers. Probably I got.
You did.
More money on the card than I needed to. It was a hot mess. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, just forget it. We don't need clothes. We don't need them.
So considering that too, the Portuguese language is somewhat difficult to learn. So that is something to kind of keep in mind, that, this is one thing you got to kind of get over when you're there. The other thing that I would say is the school spots.
Yes.
They fill up very fast. So that's something to consider. Like if you go in there, you need to if you're going to make that decision, you got to kind of plan ahead. It's just not kind of like show up, because if you show up and there's no more spots in international schools,
then you're homeschooling.
You're homeschooling, or they're going to public school.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with public school, but just like Brissette said, can you imagine you sitting in a classroom and everything around you is happening, and you're just the one in the middle trying to figure out, okay, what is it lunchtime yet?
Is it lunchtime? You know, and
Yeah.
you don't have anyone to talk to. So that's a thing. All right. So I don't know. What do you think? Could you do this? For the safety, I would say it's a no-brainer because you not worrying about all the things that you're worrying about in the U.S. Because I think the U.S. is out of 163 countries, they're like 132 on the list for safety.
Like we're way down on the list. And like,
So you got 7 and 132.
Yeah, because right at the time it's filming this video, Portugal is number 7 as far as safest countries in the world. So that's something to consider. And one thing we noticed, like, again, you asking, could you see this? When we were there, we noticed like the kids, like you said, they were playing. They were, when we were at the zoo, there's places to sit, like actual places. I'm just not talking about one bench. I'm talking about beautifully constructed, like Portuguese style seating areas, like for families to come and sit and really just like kind of just do family life together. We didn't notice any rushing with the kids. We noticed the kids were out, they enjoying each other. They were skateboarding. They were just kind of hanging out and just having conversations. When we were inside restaurants, they were all people inside the restaurant, families with kids, and the kids were being served to as well. They weren't just like, put them over there. Here's a chicken tender menu and some French fries. Go. It wasn't like that.
There was no children's menus for all the restaurants we went through.
Yeah.
There was no kids menus. They figured kids are a part of the family. Whatever you eat, they're gonna eat.
They're gonna eat
Some
too,
of the stuff was mostly family style, the way we were fed. So that was a plus. The only things that bothered us a lot there was probably the graffiti and the cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
Because cigarette smoke is big there. They just love smoking. So
Europe.
for us,
Hey.
I don't like cigarette smoke. They have asthma. So it's like, but here in the U.S., we have people who smoke other stuff. So
and a lot of it too.
And a lot of it. So it's like, you're just going to have to deal with some things. There's going to be no perfect place. There's no perfect place, but we're just trying to give you options. And we're also trying to give you some education on things that maybe you didn't think about. Because it's so quick to look at someone's video and say, they did it, I'm going to do it. They picked up and they just left everything. I can do the same thing. It is easy to do that, but you have to think about, okay, when I get there, what is it going to be like? I'm not going to get a job there, so I have to have something that is bringing me income from the U.S., working online or something like that. And what about my kids, if you have kids, Yes, I can just throw them in public school and hope for the best, but you also have to put yourself in that position. Could you do it if you were them?
Yeah.
So, and what are you taking them away from? Yes, you're giving them something different to think about, but what kind of kids do you have, I guess, to say. So yeah, we're excited. We are going to link our other videos from our apartment tours, because we did do apartment tours when we were in Lisbon and in Porto. So you can kind of get an idea of what the apartments look like, the style of apartments, because some were bigger than others. Both apartments we did stay in like city centers, so it was kind of in the middle of everything, which was really nice. But again, at nighttime it gets loud, so be mindful of that. That was in Lisbon, so be mindful of that.
So I'm saying, like, can we see our family here? Or can, not the question to us, really the question is to you guys. Like, can you guys see your family here? Like, let us know in the comments. Like, what part of it did you guys like? Was it the pros or the cons, or even was the cons for you guys a pro? Just curious. That's just one of the things that we were going through, and when we were there, really. But naturally, I want to ask, like, you're kind of leaning. You can kind of see that.
Right? I don't know.
Well, hold on a sec, because we need to reference back a video, because we did a video in Porto, and I'm going to make sure that it's inside our Portugal playlist where we did talk about this, and we were comparing it to Portugal to Thailand, and you said no to Portugal, but now all of a sudden somebody's back on the Portugal bus.
Sir.
I'm just saying.
I don't know why you just.
I brought it up, and I was like, because again, the one thing that I did love about Portugal was the infrastructure. And I know I touched on that on the top, is the infrastructure is there. We got lost in the city. We walked around and everything was there. It was like, okay, buses are running constantly. Trains are running constantly. Cars are moving back and forth. I'm not saying that anything was wrong in Thailand. I'm not saying that at all.
No. I think once you step back and you really take a look at the bigger picture of things and you step back, I was so into like the Thai smile and all that. But once I was like, I had to consider everything about Thailand. I had to consider, okay, the smoky season, the rainy season, the hot season, the hotter season, you know, about the weather. And when I looked at, you know, Portugal, I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of similar to what we're going through now, but a lot milder winters, which are nice, but on a day-to-day basis, you know, and living there, I'm like, okay, I can still see myself living in both places. So I'm not saying yes or no to one, but you just have to keep in mind everything, you know. Yep. And I think when I did that, when we were sitting down for that video, I was just like, I just love Thailand because it was so beautiful, and it is beautiful. And I like more of the beaches and being able to go in the water. So that's where I was kind of basing everything off of. Stop being in my business, Linda.
Just wanted to hear that. So, all right, guys. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you send this to somebody who is considering moving out of the U.S. I know a lot of us right now kind of thinking about that. It's bouncing back and forth in our brains. But if somebody's considering it, or if they had talks about this, send them this video and let them just check out the pros and the cons to see if they probably can help them.
And if you can, in the comments, I need you to leave places that you want us to research for you, or if you're living abroad somewhere and you're like, no, you guys really would love it here, leave that name. Just say where, Costa Rica, whatever, you know, whatever location you think that the La Pointes would love to live in, put that in the comments, and we would greatly appreciate it.
So guys, see you guys in the next one. Peace.